Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 662 for the 13th of June, 2021. Richard Saunders coming to you from Sydney, Australia. I had an interesting week, folks. Some of you would have noticed that at the drop of a hat, on a whim, I jumped on a train, and a couple of hours later I found myself in the little town of Katoomba, up in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney, where the snow was... It was snowing. Now, some of my very early memories were of being in lots of snow in the wilds of Canada. So I quite like the snow, so I enjoyed that hour or so I spent wandering around Katoomba in the snow. Coming up at the top of the show, the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson. And Heidi stumbled, rumbled a hairdresser and a yoga studio, not only promoting anti-vaccination views in her local area, but asking people point blank if they've had COVID-19 vaccination not to enter their premises. It doesn't get much more bizarre than that. An important story coming up at the top of the show, the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson. Following that, it's the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham, as Tim reads selected items from the Skeptic magazine. Oh, by the way, my latest issue of the Skeptic magazine just arrived in my inbox last night. And it includes the story by Heidi Robertson, so that story is going far and wide. But yes, the Book of Tim, and this week Tim talks about phantoms, amongst other things. Then to round off the show, we dive into Trove archives once more to look for references, as reported here in Australia over the decades, to the occult. A big shout out to those people who, in the last week, have had their COVID-19 vaccination, speaking about our first report. And I'm sure you will be devastated to learn that you're not welcome in a certain hairdresser in Mullumbimby or a yoga studio. And if you've had a few ill effects from the vaccine, just remember that that means your body is taking action and it's working as it should. But I'm thinking of you. Stay tuned at the end of the show for more announcements from me, including some upcoming talks. But now it's time for me to run downstairs and make myself a nice warm bowl of Eltham stew. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
Hello, Heidi Robertson here from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. This morning it was brought to my attention in a particular Facebook group that signs are going up in Mullumbimby shop fronts. You might recall that Mullumbimby is a short drive down the road from me here in northern New South Wales, Australia, and has some of the lowest vaccination rates in the country. So these signs apparently stated that the shop owners did not want people who have been recently vaccinated for COVID-19 to enter their business premises. I was a little intrigued by this. I had heard in the media and on the Skeptic Zone podcast recently about a hairdresser up on the Gold Coast, which incidentally is about an hour and a half north of here where I live. That hairdresser had requested the same thing of her customers. So I thought I'd head down to Mullumbimby this morning to see for myself whether or not this was true and what exactly the signs say. But first, I think I'm going to call New South Wales Health to see if there is any legislation covering anti COVID-19 vaccination signage? I suspect there isn't. So I did call around about the legislation, and more on that in a moment. But I've just seen the signs for myself. I took some pictures, and I am back in the car, parked around the corner. So I initially parked on one of the main streets here in Mullumbimby, where I was told that the hairdresser that was displaying this sign. I walked across the street to that hairdresser in question, and sure enough, there it was, the sign, quite prominently on the glass sliding door as you enter the shop. So, as I was leaning in a little bit closer to read what the sign said, I saw the hairdresser in question peering out at me, and I wondered, is she going to come out and ask me what I'm doing? Especially when I got my phone out to take the photos. I was a little bit nervous, but I was fully prepared to talk with her about it and just sort of politely ask her what was going on with the sign. But anyway, she didn't come out, and I didn't want to go in there and start questioning her. She was cutting the hair of an elderly customer at the time. I didn't want to go in and make a scene. So I just read the sign, I took some pictures, and then just as I'm about to leave, I noticed that there is the same sign on the shop next door, which was a yoga centre. Here's what the sign said.
We see a large orange sign with a red love heart right at the top. The text reads as follows. We believe in health, freedom, and creating a safe place for each individual to make their own choices while fully respecting others in theirs. Until there have been more significant long-term studies and examinations of the various implications and side effects of the COVID-19 vaccines, we have decided to err on the side of caution in the interests of reducing possible risks for everyone who uses this business. Then, in much larger letters in the middle of the poster, on a white background, if you have had the COVID-19 vaccine, we ask you to not, and not is in capitals, enter for 2 weeks or longer until any symptoms subside. Then again in smaller print on orange, this decision is based on new information surfacing from GPs, healthcare providers, specialists in virology, immunology, and first-hand accounts suggesting possible serious reactions, where vaccinated individuals may be inadvertently impacting the health of others from detoxing through the skin, shedding, or transference affecting non-vaccinated people. Thank you, with greatest respect for our community and ourselves.
Now, I'm the first person that will stand up alongside any small or large business, for that matter, and say they should be able to let whoever the hell they want to into their premises and run the business however they want to, as long as it complies with Australia's anti-discrimination laws and workplace health and safety laws, etc. I mean, they've got to be some kind of regulation to make sure that everyone's abiding by the same rules. But I don't know if there's any legislation covering if these signs are considered discrimination. I mean, here we are in a global pandemic trying to get this disease and its various mutations under some semblance of control, and we have government requesting businesses to comply with COVID-safe plans and COVID-safe signage, including the requirement of QR codes to check in for contact tracing purposes. And then you have people who want to be vaccinated to help protect themselves and their communities, and they get told they'll have to stay away from these certain businesses because they're considered more of a danger vaccinated than unvaccinated. Now, personally, I don't particularly want to frequent these businesses, but others in a small town might not have much of a choice. Although, having said that, admittedly there are a lot of yoga centres and hairdressers around Mullumbimby. But if this becomes a trend and other businesses start putting up similar signage, what can the government do? What can public health do? Is there any legislation? And clearly these businesses can't know who has been vaccinated and who hasn't. I think it appears to be more of a public statement of how they feel about the vaccination rollout than anything else. They seem to be pretty worried about something called shedding, where the belief is that you are able to transmit or shed the disease that you're vaccinated for right after getting the vaccine. Now, there's no live virus in Australia's COVID vaccinations, and so it's impossible to shed a virus that's not actually present in the vaccine. Anyway, before I went down to Mullumbimby, I made a few phone calls about any legislation surrounding this, even if there is any at all. First, I rang a government department COVID-19 hotline, and I got put through to somebody who I don't think was a trained health professional. I think they were just answering the phone, because when I described the signs to her and asked, what is the health department's policy on such signage? Is there a policy? She actually said to me, well, we can't change people's minds. They might have just different opinions to yours, and actually they probably have a good point, because you can get sick after the COVID vaccine. And I was horrified, because someone representing New South Wales Health, that they could casually sort of say to me over the phone, with a complete misunderstanding of how vaccines work, something like that. Yes, you may feel unwell after a COVID vaccine, but that is your body mounting an immune response to something it hasn't encountered before. It can make you feel a bit crappy for a short period of time. And side note to that, I've had my first Pfizer vaccine. I was lucky to not get any side effects except for a bit of a sore arm. But some people do get a bit sick for a few hours, and if you get the chills and a temperature after the COVID-19 vaccination, that's just normal for many people. And you're not contagious because of the side effects of the vaccine. They do suggest that if you have symptoms for up to, I think it's more than 72 hours after the vaccine, that you should probably go and get COVID tested, because you could have got infected with COVID around the same time that you were vaccinated, or between doses. But I don't think that the people putting these signs up were referring to about that scenario. And I don't think that that's what the person on the end of the COVID hotline was talking about either. So then I rang the national COVID hotline as opposed to the state one that I had just called. The national people were a little incredulous that these signs were going up. In fact, they asked me to repeat myself a couple of times. They initially thought I was talking about businesses refusing entry for anti-vaxxers. Anyway, they were not aware of any legislation that would cover this kind of thing. The anti-discrimination laws do cover things like, you can't discriminate against someone on the basis of sex, race, gender, age, or disability. But they don't seem to dig any deeper than that, according to the National COVID Hotline. But she referred me then to Legal Aid, which is a free legal service here. So I rang them, and they couldn't help me either. they referred me to the Human Rights Commission, who also couldn't help me and didn't really seem to know what the hell I was talking about. And at this point, I wasn't even sure I knew what I was talking about, to be honest. Anyway, they referred me to a small business commissioner for COVID matters. They couldn't help me either. No one seemed to be aware of any legislation covering the issue of anti-vaccination signs on small business premises, refusing entry to customers who have been vaccinated against COVID-19. So I thought this might be the case, that I'd run into a bit of a dead end. I was just curious as to where it would all lead me. It was probably a waste of a few hours this morning. But there you have it. So I think freedom of speech is all well and good. In fact, I'm a huge supporter of freedom of speech, as I'm sure most of us are. But not when it's based on misinformation that goes against the public health efforts to protect the vulnerable people in our community and try and get us out of this pandemic. Anywho, it will be interesting to see if more of these signs pop up, and if so, what, if anything, can and will be done about it. In the meantime, that's all from me. It's been Heidi Robertson with the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters, live reporting from the car in Mullumbimby. See you next time.
Now, following on from Heidi's report, we have a report here in The Guardian, at theguardian.com, by Melissa Davey, published on the 8th of June 2021. Vaccines won't give you COVID. Health officials battle anti-vaccination message in Northern Rivers. Medical professionals living in the Byron Bay region are angry and frustrated after a business asked vaccinated customers not to enter. Health officials in New South Wales have had to reiterate advice over COVID-19 after a number of businesses in the Byron Shire were witnessed asking vaccinated customers not to enter their premises under the misapprehension they could shed the virus. The New South Wales Department of Health has stressed that it is impossible for people to develop, shed, or spread the virus through receiving a vaccine. The advice comes after some businesses in the small town of Mullumbimby placed signs in their windows that read, "If you have had the COVID-19 vaccine, we ask that you not enter for 2 weeks or longer until any symptoms subside." One of the signs falsely states that the spread of the virus following vaccination was emerging from, quote, first-hand accounts, end quote, and that vaccinated people were, quote, inadvertently harming, end quote, the health of others. The town is located in the Northern Rivers region of New South Wales and is about 15 kilometres inland from Byron Bay. It is a region with a high level of vaccine hesitancy and refusal, with childhood vaccination rates among the lowest in Australia. A former paramedic who runs a World Health Organization, WHO, approved vaccination information site, Heidi Robertson, said she was appalled to see the signs as she walked down Stewart Street on Monday. She and health professionals living in the region, including intensive care specialist Dr. Rachel Heap, have been working hard for several years to educate the community about vaccination. We wanted to change the narrative around the region because we've got such a shocking rate of vaccination uptake, and we are known for that in Mullumbimby. Our Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters website is not funded, and WHO has fact-checked our website, so we're considered to be a reliable source of vaccine safety information. Our approach is non-confrontational, so we don't get up in people's faces and say, "You should be vaccinating." We instead tell people that if they have questions and are hesitant, they can come to us and get answers from reputable sources. So when I saw the signs, I took photos of them but did not go in and confront anyone. But if the owners were to come out and talk to me, I would have just asked them why they are more afraid of a vaccinated person than a person that hasn't been protected
against this disease.
Guardian Australia has contacted the businesses displaying the signs, but none responded to requests for comment. Another sign seen by Guardian Australia falsely claims, quote, shedding or transferring of the virus, end quote, to others can occur following vaccination. Robinson rang the Services New South Wales COVID-19 information line to report the signs and said she was concerned by the, quote, dismissive, end quote, response from the person she spoke with.
I asked if there was any policy or legislation regarding businesses refusing entry to vaccinated people, especially since there is so much policy and procedure around COVID business safety and plans and QR check-ins.
Robinson said,
The Services New South Wales person actually told me the business has got a point because you can get sick after COVID vaccination. I told her side effects of vaccines aren't contagious, and was pretty horrified that someone representing the helpline would say that. I got quite cranky and have since made a formal complaint. These businesses are clearly buying into the myth that you can shed fragments of the virus after vaccination and spread it that way, which is impossible since none of the vaccines contain any live virus.
A New South Wales health spokeswoman confirmed,
You cannot get COVID-19 from a COVID-19 vaccine. To get COVID-19, you must be exposed to a live COVID-19 virus.
the spokeswoman said.
No COVID-19 vaccine currently approved for use in the world contains a live coronavirus. Side effects following COVID-19 vaccination such as tiredness, headache, muscle aches and fever are common and expected, and are an indication that the immune system is responding to the vaccine. These symptoms are not an indicator that you have an infection caused by the vaccine.
The symptoms are also not contagious.
New South Wales Health urges everyone who can be vaccinated to do so. Vaccination is a vital step in protecting you, your family and the community,
the spokeswoman said. Robinson said businesses with such views could not simply be ignored, given the Byron Shire is a popular tourist attraction, and once borders reopen, those who remain unvaccinated in the town would be at high risk.
We are right next to Byron Bay, and that is a massive tourist destination.
She said,
People come here from all over the world, so when our borders open up again, we can not have all this misinformation spread by our local businesses who refuse to be vaccinated and don't want to accept people who have been vaccinated. Because what is going to happen is COVID is going to rip through our community like wildfire.
And that story is again thanks to The Guardian at guardian.com, and I will link to that specific page in this week's show notes.
Hi, this is Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. We are a group of concerned citizens dedicated to promoting good science and common sense in our region, the far north coast of New South Wales. This area, famous for its natural beauty and relaxed lifestyle, also has the lowest rates of vaccination in Australia. We are out to change that by challenging the myths and misinformation and by providing good evidence-based information to the community. We'd love for you, no matter where you are in the world, to join our fight. Please visit our webpage at www.nrvs.info. We also have a link there to our Facebook page. Tweet us at NRVaxSupporters, that's VAX, and check us out on Wikipedia by searching for Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. Thank you.
And now, a reading from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham.
Hi, my name's Tim Mendham and I'm the editor of Australian Skeptics magazine, The Skeptic. And today I'm reading from The Skeptic, December 2014, which is volume 34, number 4, which you can download for free from our website skeptics.com.au. Today I'm reading from the column What Goes Around, which is based on the premise that you can start with any particular story or anecdote and work your way round through connections back to where you started from, giving you the almost inevitable realisation that all knowledge is connected and connectable. And this one is looking at roots, alchemists, methodics and phantoms. Let's start off with homunculus, which is Latin for little man. That's a term used generally in various fields of study to refer to any representation of a small human being. Popularised in 16th century alchemy and 19th century fiction, it has historically referred to the creation of a miniature, fully formed human. The concept has roots in preformationism, which means that eggs or sperm contain a complete preformed individual called animalcules, which only need enlarging into a fully formed being. As well as earlier folklore and alchemic traditions, the homunculus has also been compared to the golem of Jewish folklore. The concept of the homunculus may have been influenced by earlier folk traditions concerning the mandragora. Common name is mandrake, which you would have seen in Harry Potter. Because mandrake contains deliriant hallucinogenic tropane alkaloids, and its roots sometimes contain bifurcations causing them to resemble human figures, these roots have long been used in magic rituals and contemporary pagan traditions such as Wicca and Odinism, not to mention Harry Potter. The only part of the mandrake that is not poisonous is the fruit. In Liber de Imaginibus, written by Paracelsus, 1493 to 1541, but his real name was Philippus Aurelius Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, he denied that roots shaped like men grow naturally, attacking dishonest people who carved roots to look like men and sell them. He clarified that the homunculus's origins are in sperm and that it is falsely confused with ideas from necromancy and natural philosophy. Paracelsus was a Swiss-German Renaissance physician, botanist, alchemist, astrologer and general occultist who founded the discipline of toxicology. Paracelsus meaning next in his status as physician to Celsus, referring to the 1st century Roman encyclopedist Aulus Cornelius Celsus, known for his tract on medicine. Aulus Cornelius Celsus, who was born in about 25 BCE and died in about 50 CE, was known for his medical work De Medicina, which is believed to be the only surviving section of a much larger encyclopedia. De Medicina is a primary source on diet, pharmacy, surgery and related fields, and it is one of the best sources concerning medical knowledge in the Roman world. Nothing is known about the life of Celsus, though some incidental expressions in De Medicina suggest that he lived under the reigns of Augustus and Tiberius, which is confirmed by his reference to Themison as being recently in his old age, though the overlap is debatable. Themison of Laodicea, who lived from 123 to 43 BCE, was one of the most eminent physicians of his time, although Celsus disagreed with that assessment. He was a pupil of Asclepiades of Bithynia, though he differed from his teacher on several points in his old age and became the founder of a new sect called the Methodic School, which long exercised an extensive influence on medical science. He was perhaps the first physician who made use of leeches. He prescribed darkness and restraint by chains and deprivation of food and drink for mental patients and the deluded. Juvenal, the Roman writer, satirised him and suggested that he killed more patients than he cured. Speaking of being deluded, delusion is the concept that people strongly believe something to be true in the face of evidence to the contrary, giving rise to false beliefs. One such belief is the phantom limb, where a person believes that they can still feel a limb long after it has been amputated. Professor Villanueva Ramachandran, director of the Centre for Brain and Cognition at the University of California, refers to cases where it is not uncommon for amputees to believe that their phantom limb waves, picks things up and feels pain. Ramachandran explains that these sensations are a result of an exact representational map of the body, telling the brain how the body is connected. This is known as the Penfield homunculus. And that brings us back to our starting point, homunculus, the little man. And that's from The Skeptic, December 2014, volume 34, number 4, What Goes Around. And as I said, you can download that issue for free on our website, skeptics.com.au.
Hello, this is Maynard. Did you know that you can listen to the Skeptic Zone on YouTube? Yes, I know, sounds crazy, but it's true. Also, you can hear 40 logical fallacies with Michelle Bickersma and funny sketches with Richard Saunders and a host of other skeptics. Just click on the YouTube links on the homepage at skepticzone.tv.
Now it's time to peer into the digital archives at Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, the online resource for the whole world to enjoy from Australia, digitised newspapers and magazines and so on. And in weeks past we've concentrated on matters of interest to skeptics, terms and themes, and this week is no different. This week we'll be looking at references in history to the occult. And a quick dictionary search online returns occult, noun, mystical, supernatural, or magical powers, practices, or phenomena. Quote, a secret society to study alchemy and the occult, end quote. Adjective 1. Involving or relating to mystical, supernatural, or magic powers, practices, or phenomena, quote, an occult ceremony, end quote. And there are other meanings there of the word, but I think you get the idea. Wikipedia says occult, knowledge of the hidden or the paranormal. The occult, in the broadest sense, is a category of supernatural beliefs and practices which generally fall outside the scope of religion and science, encompassing such phenomena involving otherworldly agency as mysticism, spirituality, and magic. It can also refer to supernatural ideas like extrasensory perception and parapsychology. The term occult sciences was used in the 16th century to refer to astrology, alchemy, and natural magic, which today are considered pseudosciences. And of course, there is a lot more information on that wiki page. So let's see what we can find in the pages at trove.nla.gov.au. And we'll start in the year 1944 from the pages of Smith's Weekly, and we've delved into Smith's Weekly in the past, I'm sure. 8th of January 1944, Occult Forces. Horses, more than any other animals, are susceptible to the occult forces. At Genoa, Victoria, no horse will venture near a spot where a man named Cameron was accidentally killed a few years ago, and horses passing the spot will always accelerate their speed. Horses urged unwillingly to the place invariably betray signs of terror and endeavour to break away. And then it says in quotes, Lucky, Sydney. Now we go back in time to 1891 in the pages of the Evening News, which was in Sydney, on Saturday the 19th of September. Occult Powers, London, September 18. It was recently announced that Colonel Desmond of the Indian Army had accepted a challenge issued by Stuart Cumberland, the thought reader, for £1,000 to demonstrate the existence of occult powers claimed by the Theosophists. Colonel Desmond now declares that the Mahatmas forbid the contest. Wow. There's a reference to somebody wiggling out of a test of their claims way back in 1891. How little has changed. And now we go forward in time to 1918. On the 7th of September, the Daily Telegraph in Sydney. The Occult. A new convert, or pervert, to spiritualism is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who sets forth his adherence to the cult in a book entitled, quote, The New Revelation, end quote. He quotes the medium's Mrs. Piper as uttering, in a trance condition, in 1899 the following words.
Before the clear revelation of spirit communication, there will be a terrible war in different parts of the world. The entire world must be purified and cleansed before mortal can see, through his spiritual vision, his friends on this side, and it will take just this line of action to bring about a state of perfection.
But what does this pronouncement prove? No more and no less than that Mrs. Piper, even when she was in a trance condition, could see, just as Lord Roberts and Mr. L.J. Max and many other matter-of-fact Englishmen were able to perceive, that a great war was surely coming. One did not require to be a medium to foresee that fact. Mrs. Piper's pronouncement proves nothing more, although Sir Arthur Conan Doyle appears to suggest that the going over to spiritualism of such eminent men as Sir Oliver Lodge and himself amounts to a vindication of Mrs. Piper's prediction, and the world would embrace spiritualism after the war. Post-war troubles would be bad enough without that. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle gives an account of the phases which he went through before he accepted spiritualism as an improvement on Christianity.
Christianity, he writes, must change or must perish. People are alienated because they frankly do not believe the facts as presented to them to be true. Their reason and their sense of justice are equally offended. One can see no justice in a vicarious sacrifice, nor in the God who could be placed by such means.
This author protests seriously against the doctrine of the anointment, of the redemption, as inconsistent with our knowledge that man has not fallen, but has evolved from the man-like ape. He argues that if the world will only reject the doctrine of the anointment and redemption and embrace spiritualism instead,
reason and faith would at last be reconciled. A nightmare would be lifted from our minds, and spiritual peace would prevail.
But there are many acute observers who affirm that, so far from Christianity disappearing to make way for table rapping, there are plain indications that after the war there will be a great revival of the Christian religion. This author goes on to sketch very vaguely a picture of the subsequent life of human beings in
Spirit Land,
from which place, according to his belief, those who have passed over can, for a limited time, communicate with friends and relatives on this earthly plane. From communications alleged to have been made by spirits, he describes the next life in these terms.
The life has a close analogy to that of this world at its best. It is preeminently a life of the mind, as this is a life of the body. Preoccupations of food, money, lust, pain, etc. are of the body and are gone. Music, the arts, intellectual and spiritual knowledge and progress have increased. The people are clothed as one would expect, since there is no reason why modesty should disappear with our new forms. These new forms are the absolute reproduction of the old ones at their best, the young growing up and the old reverting until all come to the normal. People live in communities as one would expect, if like attracts like, and the male spirit still finds his true mate, though there is no sexuality in the grosser sense, and so no childbirth.
Sherlock Holmes himself might be quite puzzled to find a clue to the enigma of why an immortal spirit should wear clothes, as a concession to modesty. The necessity for sex modesty, when sex itself is non-existent, unless it is possible for spiritualists to think of concealing from view something which is not there. But that is only one of the minor difficulties that will confront the earnest seeker after truth in reading this book, published by Hodder and Stalton, our copy from Cole's Book Arcade. Now from 1914, 11th of June, Mullumbimby Star. The Mullumbimby Star, according to this, from 1906 to 1936. And of course in 2021, and for some years Mullumbimby has been known as the anti-vax capital of Australia, but this item says, Occult Gems. Despite the advancements of civilization and the high standard of 20th century education, it is surprising what a number of people still place their faith in the influences of certain stones, dates, and mascots, and hold firm to old superstitions whose origin is lost in bygone ages. In these days, nearly everyone is in possession of a, quote, lucky, end quote, charm of some kind, and place implicit confidence in the good effects produced by wearing their birthday stone or one of the many mascots supposed to guard against ill fortune of all kinds. The occultists tell us that every gem and metal has an intimate connection with one of the planets that control the solar system of the seasons of the year, and should be worn by persons born under the influence of that particular planet. Many people, however, wear the wrong stone as their, quote, lucky, end quote, one, simply because they choose it according to the calendar month, and not the zodiacal month. Here is the correct list, showing the sign and stone appropriate for persons born or within certain dates throughout the year. Stone, garnet. Zodiacal sign, Aquarius. Dates, January 21 to February 18. Amethyst, Pisces, February 19 to March 20. Bloodstone, Aries, March 21 to April 20. Sapphire, Taurus, April 21 to May 21. Emerald, Gemini, May 22 to June 21. Agate, Cancer, June 22 to July 23. Ruby, Leo, July 24 to August 23. Sardonyx, Virgo, August 24 to September 23. Chrysolite, Libra, September 24 to October 23. Opal, Scorpio, October 24 to November 22. Topaz, Sagittarius, November 23 to December 22. Turquoise, Capricornius, December 23 to January 20. The garnet, if rightly worn, is said to impart confidence, cheerfulness, and consistency to its wearer. Amethyst strengthens the willpower, gives peace of mind, and cures intemperance. Bloodstone promotes courage and wisdom. Sapphire protects against disease and gives warning of danger. Emerald gives faith, friendship, and domestic felicity. Agate ensures good health and prosperity. Ruby is a symbol of power, guards against false friends, and has a bracing effect on the wearer. Sardonyx is favourable to marriage, but, like the opal, is a very unlucky stone to anyone born out of its, quote, zodiacal sign, end quote. Chrysolite is a stone of hope and comfort, and gives courage in adversity. Opal combines the virtues of all stones whose colours it reflects, but if wrongly worn, it is fatal to love and friendship. Topaz protects against perils by water, ensures fidelity and love, and brightens the intellect. And turquoise is a very lucky stone promoting success, love, and happiness. And on that hopeful note, we'll leave our search for this week on matters pertaining to the occult. But I will admit I was expecting more in the way of devil worship, that sort of thing. When I think of the word occult, that sort of springs to mind. But I see the meaning is a lot more broad or vague than that. And it's interesting to discover that reference to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Maybe that should be the Trove segment all in itself, I think. The Adventures in Spiritualism of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And of course the Coddingsley Fairies. But that's a Trove for another time. And don't forget, you too can enjoy a trip into the trove of digitised newspapers and so on just by visiting trove.nla.gov.au. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, as I said at the top of the show, we have an announcement of an upcoming talk. In fact, it's Monday, so very soon, Monday the 14th of June at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Australian time. If you're confused or can't quite work that one out, just Google time in Canberra. That should give you a clue. The Canberra Skeptics present Dr. Lynn Kelly. This is a Zoom meeting. And I've known Lynn for many, many years. She's a brilliant cold reader, but her latest interests involve, as the blurb says, Indigenous cultures, usually represented as living in a fog of superstition, but they needed a vast amount of pragmatic knowledge to survive both physically and culturally. They had no writing, so how the hell did they memorize so much stuff? In this talk, Lynn will explain the tricks of their memory trade and those of European and Asian cultures up to recent times. The big question is, how can we use these methods in contemporary society? There are significant implications for education, aging, and the interpretation of ancient monuments. This promises to be an absolutely fascinating talk, and you can get more information by going to CanberraSkeptics.org, and on Facebook, just look for Canberra Skeptics. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.
His show, The Skeptic Zone. The Skeptic Zone. So I hope you guys all bite along with us and use your psychic powers to predict the numbers. I always pick 5. I'm going to get 555 eventually. So it's all yours, Richard.
Thanks, Susan, and hello, everybody. Great to see you here for the trivia, the 1-year anniversary, which is pretty important. This is the part of the show, folks, that those people who listen after the music will know. If you've never heard the show after the music, this is where occasionally we roll. I'll say that again. This is where we occasionally roll a die. 6, 10, 20, 30, whatever. Today it's a D20. And I'm just holding that up so everybody can see. I'm going to roll this 3 times. And I want you to use your special magic predicting psychic powers or luck to predict what number's going to come up from 1 to 20. I'm going to tilt the camera down so you can see my dice contraption, which is there. So, here comes the first roll. Shout out something, everybody. What number?
5.
5.
4.
19.
18.
4.
12.
1.
Put it in the chat, you guys.
11. Put it in the chat.
10.
Well, they're all putting it in the chat on the side there, so they can't change their mind. I'm going to roll it in 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a 7.
Oh.
Somebody got it.
Aaron got it.
Aaron got it.
All right.
Faith got it. Faith Romero got a 7. Who else?
That's what I thought. I thought it was 11. 7, 11.
Next number coming
yeah.
up. So make your predictions. I'm going to roll
Next.
in
14.
5 seconds.
8 again.
Lucky number 13.
5,
5.
4, 3, 2,
Hurry up, you guys.
1. Here it comes. 11.
Oh.
And the
And
last
did anybody get 11? Let me see.
last number coming up. So make your predictions now. And all you people listening on the podcast, use your magical psychic powers or whatever you wish.
People keep guessing 5. They think I guess I know something, but they don't.
Here it
It's
comes.
5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the last number is 17.
Oh,
So close.
I know.
So,
Wait, it looks like 11.
it looks like 11.
From a distance.
Today's winning
Nobody
numbers.
Gail got 17.
Some people got it. Today's winning numbers for you at home, 7, 11, and 17. Thank you to the
Did
trivia.
anybody get more than one of them right?
Nobody.
Karen,
Oh,
how
yeah.
many did you get?
Karen did.
She
One.
got it twice?
No, just one.
Just
Oh,
one.
just one?
So
Oh,
all
man.
of these people, only one person got one right once.
All right.
Oh.
Just for you,
Some people
we'll
got
do it.
one
We'll
right.
do.
People got one.
We'll do a supplementary. You got one more chance. Here we go.
Okay,
Quick.
okay. Hurry, put your guess
Here it
in.
comes.
8 again.
5, 5. 5, 5, 5.
Susan just hopes for a 5. Here it comes in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Unlucky for some. 13.
13?
Well, look, there's a 5 near it.
I predicted the number on the previous.
I got 13.
Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Susan,
Thanks,
and congratulations. Yay.
Yay.